light within our hearts, light within our thoughts, light within our words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Who. With me today on the show, I have my friend David Slater, who is an intuitive and spiritual counselor, and we wanted to discuss the invitations, opportunities, and empowerments of uncertainty. It seems people charge their way through life wanting everything to be certain, wanting the sure thing, wanting to minimize risk. And in my experience, life doesn't come with guarantees. Uncertainty is pretty much all we can be, the only thing of which we can be certain. And yet everything strains in the opposite direction. I'm not sure it's wise to strain in the opposite direction. I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of uncharted territory to which uncertainty can lead if we would just be willing to stop running away from it.
Mm-hmm. We fight nature in our society. It's ridiculous. We fear death, but then we start fearing life, and then we do neither because we're running away from both. And you
cannot fully live while you're conscious of being afraid of death, and you cannot fully create or originally create if what you are striving to avoid is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
If you want only what is guaranteed, then essentially you cannot create anything that hasn't already been created.
Working with clients, I get the message, especially from folks who have passed or spirit, mm-hmm. saying you live in a playground. And what I find is so many people live in a playground and they're analyzing and categorizing and labeling the individual pebbles of the gravel in the playground. We don't play. Now here's...
We're creating a library of every atom of existence?
We're trying to label whatever we can. We aren't experiencing it, loving it, letting it be.
And letting it be creative.
Yes.
The notion of being creative is that something that has not previously existed will come from this.
What has helped me tremendously is the excitement. This goes with an earlier conversation you and I had. When you speak of emotions, you have fear and excitement, and the only difference between them is which one is based in fear and which one's based in love. So when does the roller coaster ride at an amusement park cause a heart attack, and when does it shoot your hands up and you scream with glee? And the idea is with delight. And it's the same experience. You get to choose how you interact with it. So when the plan goes to pieces, what do? This is the unexpected. This is the where can you go? When you see a void in something, do you see that it has the absence of nothing, or has the absence of everything, or the presence of all possibility? And okay, that may be a fancier way of saying half full, half empty for a glass.
Well, except that it takes in more than that.
Yes.
I was trying to follow in your metaphor of the roller coaster. If it's going around a curve and something breaks and the roller coaster flies off the track, automatically everyone's thoughts seem to steer toward someone's going to be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of reasons to think that. On the flip side, say it goes around the corner and brakes right at that point so that the cars wind up launching themselves into a lake. Well, there'll be a big splash, and hopefully you'll be able to, get the safety belts undone and so forth. But it would seem to me, superficially, because I'm not an engineer about such things, but it would seem to me that there's a good chance everyone will come through just fine. Relatively soft landing. As opposed to crashing into a brick wall.
Yeah.
Or any other number of things. Maybe someone would be thrown out of their seat somehow, and I don't know, grab the branches of a tree.
What it comes down to is what's rational, and the answer is none. If you are fearful, you can say, well, that's not rational. One in a gazillion roller coasters this happens. The odds of a crash on a roller coaster is, so it's not rational to be fearful of it.
Statistically improbable.
Right. But shooting your hands over your head and screaming your lungs out has no rational to it either.
No.
And so
it's
throw
about
out
the
rational.
experience of the emotion in the moment.
Yes.
But recognizing that any moment holds a variety of potential emotions depending upon what you're willing to believe and what you're willing to trust.
And what you're willing to experience.
And what you're willing to experience.
I found it interesting. When I was a teenager, I was attending those holy roller churches where there was dancing around and speaking in tongues and wild stuff.
Pentecostal Protestant Christianity.
Exactly. And my friends, of course, being a teenager, they're thinking, well, you're kind of weird. And then I watched a Denver Bronco game, and they're shooting their hands over their head, dancing around, and saying unintelligible things. So in our society, that's acceptable to do it for your favorite sports team, but for the creator of the universe, oh, that's just weird. So allow for the experience. And when you can then understand your own delight in doing that, you can also see it in another person. You can see somebody get all excited about something that someone who loves to shop. Okay, to me, I would much rather have a root canal. But I can see and watch them.
A horrible dental procedure.
Right. But you can have them, watch them enjoy it and look forward to it and relish the experience. And I'm saying shopping, not necessarily buying, not acquiring, not the lack concept. They love to shop.
Just wandering around endlessly for hours comparing different items.
You ever wonder why it's called fishing, not catching? Again, let the experience happen. Sometimes you're sitting at a gorgeous lake, you want to throw nothing but sinkers on the end of that line and cast out because you don't want to be interrupted by a fish.
Oh, I see.
Allow the experience.
No bait.
Yes, exactly. And so let the unexpected
A more
happen.
serious example, though, that comes to mind is when I was 14, I decided at one point to get on my bicycle and go visit a friend who lived in a city 60 miles away. And everyone responded afterwards that they just thought this was so incredible that a 14-year-old would get on a bicycle and pedal it for 60 miles just to go visit a friend in the summertime. And to me, it didn't seem all that impressive. You can sit on a bicycle and move the pedals, right? What's the difference between going 2 blocks and going 60 miles? You just do it a little bit longer. But I guess the point was to be open to both the positive and the negative possibilities, the opportunities and the invitation of it. That there was something about life and about living life that I was going to learn by doing this that couldn't be learned any other way. And that if I stayed always with what was safe and predictable and known, I wouldn't be half the person I am today. But on one hand, I didn't feel the need to be reckless about it. On the other hand, I didn't feel a need to be paranoid about it. I approached it with a certain kind of circumspect sort of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? I have my list of phone numbers. I have a quarter for a payphone if I need it. Um, I made sure I had a repair kit in case my bicycle would develop a flat tire, which
Mm-hmm.
it didn't. But
Mm-hmm.
probably the most difficult part was riding along the edge of a highway where there really wasn't a paved shoulder, and so that when the semi trucks and things would go by, they were literally within a couple feet of my elbow.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that if I occupied my 10 inches at the edge of the pavement, they were not going to hit me. That, yes, it would be closed because the road wasn't particularly wide, but as long as I maintained my center and my focus and stayed predictable to them,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't swerving all over the road, they would know how to go past me without hitting me.
Yeah.
In a sense, it put me in the position of trusting a total stranger because I never met any of the people in those vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you even think about the concept of driving, is the lines. We don't trust much of anything in our life, but we trust a double yellow line on a highway.
Mm-hmm.
Because that line is there, we won't see oncoming traffic.
Well, and
Yeah.
we will expect that the oncoming traffic will not cross the line.
Exactly. But here's the
But
funny...
we don't know them. We don't know their history. We don't know their values. We don't know if they're even thinking about where they're going. We don't actually even know if they're awake.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, people have an incredible fear of flying and refuse to fly.
Mm-hmm.
I ride my bike a lot, and people think that's crazy. It's so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But no one understands that since the inception of the automobile, back around 1900, give or take a decade or two, there have been more people killed in automobiles than all the wars combined since 1492. So if you're fearing death, stay out of a car.
Mm-hmm.
You're safer on a bicycle, and you're safer in the air in an airplane. It's irrational, and we try to fight our nature, but we try to make everything expected. We try to contain everything, and nothing can be contained. So when we...
It reminds me of discussions I've had with people about suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, people say that every suicide is a preventable death. But every traffic accident is also a preventable death.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the lion's share of dietary-related ailments are also preventable.
How about stress?
Yes, stress is 99% preventable.
Mm-hmm.
All of which says to me that ultimately comes back to accepting that life has uncertainties. But the thing I was, as I was talking about my bicycle ride when I was 14, was the notion that even at that time, I guess more or less since the beginning, my life has always been very oriented around spirituality. Mm-hmm. And on one hand, I didn't want to be reckless, but on the other hand, I knew that all my times are in God's hands anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not my time to go, nothing is going to happen. If it is my time, there's nothing I can do to prevent it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of trying to affect that time one way or the other, I would rather focus on the pursuits of wisdom and love and allow life to go wherever it needs to go. And whatever it happens to include, I will respond as well as I can. But it's the acceptance of how unavoidably uncertain everything ultimately is.
And if you can take on that concept, what do you want to experience? Watching the movie Avatar, there's so many things that were fun to watch in that, but there was one particular one. They're on a floating mountain, going to another floating mountain, and they have to jump off one to grab a vine to climb to the other one.
Okay.
If you miss, it's thousands of feet falling. You don't survive that. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live a life that contains that? Instead, we're very happy to go to a cubicle and be locked into it for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. That's what we choose. Wouldn't it be?
But the thing I think that a lot of people overlook, though, in the movie Avatar, was the self-confidence and the self-awareness that the indigenous population developed. You know, the notion of jumping from one floating mountain to another, the reason it was manageable was because they knew themselves. They knew how far they could jump. They knew how good their grip was in terms of being able to grab the vine when they got there. They knew the dynamics that were necessary to deal with their environment. They didn't know the outcome. There's that unavoidable uncertainty.
Can't know.
But
yeah.
they knew their potential contribution to the situation. I'm not sure most people really understand what they contribute or what they could contribute.
This goes right back to your bicycle trip.
Okay.
You want to visit a friend. You're not going to let 16 miles keep you from visiting the friend.
60. 60.
Oh, a 60. Well, okay, 60 miles. It required this thing. Okay,
But
so you do it.
I didn't know what the trip would include because I'd never been down that highway before. But I knew what operating a bicycle required.
Yes.
And so I took what I did know and applied it to the uncertainty and wound up with an outcome that I suppose was quite literally life formative. You know, that same sort of willingness to take a chance has allowed me to embrace a whole lot of subsequent opportunities that someone who might have been too afraid to do the bicycle trip never would have embraced.
Again, to make the thing, when you're in your cubicle and you made another spreadsheet, yay! Okay, talk about predictable, talk about safe. Anyone in our society, a large segment of our society, if they were to be able to operate a bicycle for 6 miles, would be an incredible experience for them, and they'll never do it. The fear will keep them from doing it. But we will go with what's predictable and what's easy. And pretty soon we find ourselves in our 40s and our 50s and have no memories. We have no achievements. Our job means, oh, today I stacked some more ones and zeros in a box. And I have nothing to show for it. Isn't that ridiculous? Shawshank.
I love the quote from Frederick Douglass that there is no progress without struggle.
Yes.
You know, it would seem to me that progress, not in the sense of more skyscrapers or more technology or whatever, but progress in the sense of the sapling that becomes the great oak tree, the seed that becomes a field of flowers, the falling snowflake that winds up contributing to the mighty Mississippi, you know, a river that of such proportions as to be incomprehensible. You know, the moments of our lives adding up to something that is so much greater than any of the moments, you know, all the moments together creating something even greater than their parts, than their sum. You know, how does one say, okay, Frederick Douglass lived this many minutes, this many years, etc. That's the sum of his life. Well, except that we're quoting him more than 100 years later. What does that mean? You know, that would suggest that the impact of his life is far greater than the number of minutes that it included. Why not live a life such that the same could be said of any one of us?
You and I are perfect in this. Someone comes to you haven't seen in a while, so what's new? A lot of us are, of course, on the spot and thinking, okay, what's new? The thing is what's new for you today? Oh, you were Sister Who today. You were you
Mm-hmm.
experiencing a conversation you're not going to have many other places. And this is day in the life for you.
Even if we had another conversation 5 minutes from now,
Yes.
we could not duplicate the one we're having now.
And the marvel of that, I have people, when I interact with them, they'll say, so David, what's new? And it's like, oh, geez, okay. Probably need 72 hours to cover the last 72 hours. And not because I'm jumping from floating mountains, not because I'm riding rapids.
And not because you're horribly narcissistic.
Exactly. But what I did was, oh, this wonderful thing happened. I got to hang out with Sister Who today. Oh, this is awesome. They're like, well, who's Sister Who? And there is no describing you. And that's wonderful.
It remains one of the most challenging things about Sister Who, that I and the work are so uncategorizable.
Yes. And
But still, I beg people all the time, please give me a chance.
oh yeah.
I like to think that you won't be sorry, but I can't make you give me a chance.
What I want to challenge.
But even more important than giving me a chance, give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to find what journeys only you could make, and that you can report what you perceive that nobody else would have ever perceived the same way. Because there is some unexpected wisdom that may come through you that may be exactly what the next person you meet needs to hear. It's not just about what can I do, it's about what each one of us can do. It's what uncertainty you embody that can be your absolute gift to the world, an invitation to others to discover their gifts and their opportunities. And by each of us doing this, to discover empowerment that we simply didn't realize we had.
And you were living life not when people are telling you you're doing the wonderful thing, but by the people who contacted you saying how offended they were. Because I know you are not trying to offend anyone. That is not your goal. And the fun thing is that you're living a life where it throws people off. My thought is,
and yet I have to confess, it does hurt when they say that.
Can you ever congratulate yourself for it?
Not at the time.
Right.
I want to be constructive. I want to be loving. I want to nurture and support them. I want to open new horizons for them. And instead they come back saying, how dare you unsettle my stagnation? How dare you let me think that I am not the grand, intelligent, accomplished person that I've held myself to be.
I have all my certifications.
I didn't say anything to put them down, but somehow I guess a question I asked made them look in the mirror and wonder if there was something they needed to address. I would say, well, then go address it. Don't worry about me. The point is not whether something came to light that was lacking, but what are you going to do with it? This is your opportunity. Seize it. Take it. Run with it. Become something that you didn't ever think about being before, that just because no one bothered to mention it.
I was given a nickname that I am so proud of. A very dear friend of mine who is closer than a brother has given me the nickname of Damn It David. And what it is that I will have a conversation with someone and they'll say, no, that is not right. And I'm like, okay. No need to argue it. But they will be absolutely certain I'm wrong. And then 3 or 4 days later, they call me up and go, damn it, David, because they thought about it and they saw the ease and whatever. And I don't have to be right. I could care less. They can continue to disagree with me. But
it takes nothing from me if somebody persists in whatever belief they had before.
yes.
Fine. fine. Ideally, though, I think, I believe, I guess, because of my faith in humanity, my faith in the notion that the divine creates each of us to be more than we dare to imagine, that there's more there. There's more potential. There's more possibility. There's more wonders. Why neglect it? Why leave it? Why not embrace it and love it and nurture it for all it's worth?
What life do you want? To get to know someone like you better, or Fred in accounting? And Fred in accounting may be an awesome person, but will Fred challenge you?
I would like to think if you meet Fred outside of the office, you'll see a different part of Fred that would.
Precisely.
But maybe not so much the word challenge as the word inspire.
Yes.
But to end on a positive note, because once again we're running out of time here, I did have somebody walk up to me a number of years ago, actually, and I clearly a very intelligent young woman, and I thought it was wonderful. She walked up to me and in a crowd and said, "I've seen your show, and it's very disturbing. Thank you."
You do good work.
And I said, "I'm glad to be of service. Thank you for everything you've shared."
You betcha.
Thank you all for watching.